Here we go. I've got two videos for you that are dealing with correcting one of my two favorite exercises, which is step-ups, like box step-ups and box jumps. And I'm going to show you how to make sure you do them correctly and not cause any injury, as well as use them for perhaps some injury prevention. Now, a bit of a shout out goes to Mick Hughes down in Melbourne, because he's doing some great work with ACL. So you'll see in some of these videos I'll refer to that, of what we're trying to achieve with stopping the knee going to internal rotation or valgus, as well as stopping that hip drop. So first one is your box step up. Now I see a lot of people doing box step ups a little bit incorrectly, so I'm going to give you some tips so you can do them correctly. So your first video is on box step ups. Now what usually happens with box step ups is they go too high. So if I grab some weights, what tends to happen is people are aiming too high, as in they're going for a really high box to make it harder. Now what happens is, when they go up in the box, they start at this position here and then push up, okay, of course, and come down. Now what you're looking for is making sure, if that box is too high for the person, if that person's not tall enough, they'll start in a pelvis tilt like that, okay, so that leg is already down. So if you look at me from behind, okay, they start with a tilt that way, okay? Now that's fine, okay? But under repetitive load, it may not be fine. So if you're too short and the box is too high, you're going to start with the pelvis like that, all right? Now, what that's tend to do is you're going to start with the pelvis on a drop. When you push up, the tendency for your knee to roll in is higher, okay? But if you have a more level pelvis, the tendency for that knee to roll in is less, okay? So when people tend to go in a step up, they go from a sort of a tilted pelvis this way, and then they hoik and then bring it up. Okay, now when they come down like this, they tend to drop it straight away to reach down. And there's a point where their weakness is, and they'll get to the point here and then crash. Okay, now there's no real strengthening learning going on in that crash part. Okay, there's no control going on there. So what I suggest you do, drop the height of the box. Okay, you've also got to look at the actual range in the hip. Some people just do not have, anatomically, enough range in their hip, and one might be different to the other, of course, to actually get into that sort of flexion. So the tightness of the hip here, okay, forces them to maybe do a bit of a posterior tilt, okay, to get their knee up. They actually posterior tilt, which is going to flexion, but also they'll actually drop their pelvis to get the range, okay. So to actually get that pelvis, they just don't have the range there in the hip to get that pelvis neutral. So those people, again, drop the box down. Now, I would go half the height. And remember, I just noticed this one. There's a sign here saying, do not stack. There's a reason for that, okay, because these things are wobbly. Don't stack one box on top of the other that's that high, has a thing on it. This one here, of course I can stack because it's got Velcro, so I'm doubling the height in this one, okay, but preferably get a box that's one height, okay, so that's 30 centimeters. So this one is 20 inches, that's 30 centimeters. So I'm going on a 30 centimeter box. Now on a 30 centimeter box, of course, I can now maintain a level pelvis when I step up, okay, so I've got enough range here, right? So when I come up, I stay with my level pelvis, and then I come down and maintain it. There's no crash down, okay? If you're still crashing on a 30 centimeter box, go down to a 15. And this is where we get people who are doing, I'll give some weights to stabilize me a bit. This is when we get people who are doing, you know, learning to get stronger with a single leg. They're recovering from an ACL, or they're recovering from a knee injury or hip injury, and they're trying to learn this phase here. Okay, so that's why we do it at the start. That's what we learn. We learn eccentric step down before we do a step up, okay, because you've got to get the eccentric control first to make sure you don't crash at the bottom. And a lot of that's about the eccentric loading control, which helps you go down stairs and all that sort of thing, but it's also for injury prevention. So when I land in sport and do that eccentric control, I need to learn how to land and load, okay? So I need to be able to, if I'm going to step backwards, I need to be able to land and load. Now, in sport, if I step backwards and don't have that eccentric control, guess what? I'm going to drop in there. If my pelvis drops when I land, so if I go bang and land, guess what's going to go in? That knee as well, all right? Because pelvis dropping rotates that femur in, it's going to force it inwards, okay? So if anything, if you're going to work on your form to keep a level pelvis, not just to look good, it's for injury prevention for your knee. It also helps in injury prevention for your hip, because if you start going that way and forcing some load pressure around that greater trochanter, guess what's there? The greater trochanter bursa, okay? So if you're constantly winding that up, wind like that, you're always pushing it out when you come up and down, you're going to probably create some irritation through that bursa, and then it's rest time, okay? Injury time when you hit to that point. So let's recap. Your box needs to be not too high. If you're a tall person, be my guest. If you've got some hip range, great. If you can control your pelvis, if you have a level pelvis from there to there, and you can maintain that evenly all the way down, add some load, fine, okay? I'd probably go to a lower box. If you're a bit of a novice, you're a beginner, or you're new to this sort of stuff, go to a lower box, even 15, like that, and learn the step down component first. Learn to keep level pelvis, knee in line with your foot, so when you drop down, that hasn't rolled in, this hasn't dropped, okay? And same when you push up, all right? So that's one part. The other thing about load, what I like doing, and this is sort of moving into a rehabby sort of thing. I know this is a really long video, but bear with me. This one, I like using a band. Now this is pretty thick, heavy band. The band will, one, give you a graduated load instead of weights. So it's a bit kinder for you on rehab. The beauty about this is it stops the wobbliness that weights can do. As soon as you, if you're a novice, as soon as you come out and as soon as you move one hand, you're going to change your center of gravity, okay, with that, all right? So you have to be really, really stable in your leg, neuromuscularly, from your brain down through your glute and your leg, to do that action, okay, without tilting left and right. With a band, you've got a constant force pressure down, okay, so there's no left or right wobbliness, which just helps you a little bit for your stability. So if you're learning stability, this is a great way to help you keep everything in line while you're building the strength. Then you can shift your weights for more load, all right? So this one, you're going to come under your shoulders like that, okay, and there's your point there. So you're going to come down and then push back up, okay? Now, if you notice I'm a bit wobbly on this because of the box, the beauty about this soft box is it gives me even more balanced stuff to work on, okay? So I need to really control that movement and then push up under load. Now, if I can control, push up under load and then bring that leg up and then come down and up again. Make sure you're not coming down, crashing and then pushing off too hard with the back leg. Make sure you're loading up with the front leg, okay? So there's your step up. Hopefully I've given you a few tips for your glute work, the hip control, okay? Controlling that knee and preventing any other problems, especially in sport, okay? So try and change your box step ups, make sure they're really good. And like I said, come down a size if you need to. Okay, next one is box jumps.